What's kicking, everybody? We are back for another episode of Pickin Fights. Keith, joined as always by my good friend Tom. Tom, how are you today, man?
I'm doing great. It's Sunday. We got football to watch. I'm on another vacation, taking a break to talk UFC 281, but also because we have the man, the myth, the legend, the Master Chief, Marcellus Wallace, making his second pro, I guess not your second pro debut, but your second pro fight coming up in just a short amount of time here. So we had him on the show, had to tune in, had to take a break from the vacation and come in. Marcellus, how are you doing today, sir?
Man, I'm feeling good. 2 weeks away, and my body feels great. Ready to get another dub.
Yeah, esteemed guest, friend of the program. You can catch him November 18th on UFC Fight Pass. He's going to be fighting in TitanFC, Titan Fighting. I'm super pumped for that fight. So I'm excited to watch you fight, Marcellus. What are you most excited about this fight?
I'm just excited because I just know where this is leading right after this fight. Like, it's getting closer and closer to my real goal at the end of the day. Like, no matter what happens, I'm going to do everything I can to put on a show for everybody.
Awesome. Well, and you're always keeping everybody guessing. You know, we were talking about it a little bit before the show started, how in your first pro debut or your actual pro debut, you went out and you submitted your opponent there, and you're known as the striking guy. You know, so can you talk a little bit about how your games evolved? With just your this early part of your career, and maybe where you're looking to go. Are you going to be a submission guy in the future?
I could be pulling off some submissions here and there, but like my fight, so even with my striking, I'm more of an opportunist. The people can rush me all they want. Like, if I see an opening, I'm gonna take it, whether it's by punch, kick, choke, leg lock, arm lock. I'm looking for whatever you give me, and if I see an opportunity to go after, I'm gonna take it.
Yeah, see, I kind of feel like I know Marcellus as a submission guy at this point because, back when we first had you on about a year ago now, you were winning a lot of fights by heel hooks and just really creative, fun submissions. So it's fun to see you develop on that more. Won your last one with a Darce choke. But I do love your stand-up game. I'm always really impressed by it. Quick side note, how's Pops doing?
Pops is doing good. He's just as amped as I am. Probably, who knows? He's probably more amped than me because he knows where this is going as well.
That's awesome, man. Send our regards and best wishes over to him. I'm super pumped for your fight, man. So what video games are you playing these days? You playing some COD?
Right now, it's been Modern Warfare. I was grinding that shit out last night.
Nice.
A little highlight reel later.
All right. Nice, man. And what's your Twitch stream handle so we can catch you on there as well?
Apex Wallace.
Apex Wallace. All right. Very nice. Yeah. Do you ever stream UFC 4? Do you ever play that game or?
Honestly, I'm probably one of the biggest when it comes to the most recent of UFC games. For me, nothing beats Undisputed series, especially 3.
True.
I haven't been able to enjoy a really good UFC game since then.
Yeah,
I'll hop on for a little bit while it's on the Game Pass subscription. Like, okay, I'll play that a little bit, but then I'm like, okay, my fill is gone. I'll go do it for real.
Yeah. And, who's your main? So you play Apex. Who's your main in Apex?
It's been Revenant a lot. I had to go Revenant because he's the only one that represents my lifestyle because he has Muay Thai outfitted gear. That's cool. Shit. That made me connect with him more when they gave out that legendary pack where he has a Muay Thai outfit. He's got the Mongol, the shorts, everything. Okay, I like this.
Nice. You're going to be wearing your Mongol November 18th?
Always.
As always.
I always got to let him know that, hey, I've been developing my jiu-jitsu game, but I'm a striker at heart. Like, I want to eventually get a KO. I want to eventually knock somebody out, but these guys are just too scared. They start shooting for legs. That's what happens.
Yeah, they don't know what's waiting for them on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm pumped for that fight. All right, do you got anything else you want to promote over here? Any messages you want to put out before we roll into the UFC 281 talk?
Be sure to stay tuned. Probably sometime this week, if not maybe a little bit the next week after, a week before the fight. I'll be shooting with Titan later, right after the show, pretty much within an hour or two. I'll be shooting with them. So a promo will be coming from TitanFC and be featuring me, get a little interview in there. So stay tuned for that.
Nice. We're pumped. I don't want to speak for Tom, but I'm so excited for that fight, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we've kind of developed this rapport over the last year or so. Watching you go from, dominating on the amateur scene to now being in the professional regional scene. And, can't wait to see, like you said, with your pops, where it's going. We're just happy to be able to watch from a little bit closer than the average person. So, obviously we're in your corner, and, can't wait to see what happens on the 18th and have you back for your next dominant performance.
Yeah,
I appreciate you guys.
November 18th, UFC Fight Pass. Catch it there. Marcellus and Master Chief Wallace.
Let's go.
All right. So what we normally talk about, we're always pumped to have you on here and our slew of guests. But what we love to talk about as well is the UFC and give our picks out for the people at home. So we're going to start off like we always do. First, I just want to remind everybody, please like, comment, subscribe. You can listen to this on Spotify as well if you can't watch the full YouTube video. I like to go to work and listen to podcasts on the way. If I wasn't already on this show, this is probably the show I would listen to on my commute. But, and then you can follow us on Twitter as well. We've got our Twitters beneath our names. And Marcellus, just remind us of your Twitter one more time.
Same handle as my full name, pretty much, at Marcellus W16.
All right, nice. Make sure you follow Marcellus on there, as well as Instagram too. That's your Instagram handle as well, right?
Yes, they're all the same.
All right, nice.
We'll link it in the description too for everybody.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, we do have your Instagram linked in the description as of right now. So
solid. All right, just a quick shout out from AG400. AG400, that's our boy. Adam, make sure you check out Adam's content over at Men of Order. We do a lot of stuff with them as well. Love working with them and collaborating with them. All right, we're going to start off as we always really do with our prelim locks. And I'm going to go with one real quick that's going to surprise a lot of people. I'm kind of like known as the women's fight whisperer, or at least I was until this previous card this weekend. But I'm going to keep trying to roll forward with that. And this one's going to be a little bit controversial. I think some people are going to disagree because Molly McCann at this point has become a household name. And, she's famous. She's British. She's entertaining. Signed by Barstool Sports. She's an athlete over there. I don't think she's going to win this weekend, though, because she's going up against a woman who's 10 years her junior. She's a local woman. She's she's actually a student at Montclair University, and that is Erin Blanchfield, who I believe is like 23 as opposed to Molly McCann's 32. Now, Molly McCann, we know at this point she's got crazy good hands. She's won, her past two fights. Her past two were both spinning elbows, crazy fights. But the thing about Molly McCann is that she's a little bit untested in the jiu-jitsu waters. So then you look at Erin Blanchfield, who made her way up through the Eddie Bravo Invitational and won the whole thing. I believe the first time they introduced a 125 weight class for women over there. She's basically pedigree at this point. She's been training since she was like 7. And then you look at Molly McCann, who, yeah, sure, she's getting it done, but she only started fighting in 2016. So, there's a major difference between these two women. It's pedigree, it's local, young versus a little bit older, started later in life. Big journey to get here. But I think the talent really lies with Erin Blanchfield. Molly McCann's got the stand up. She's got good, really good single leg takedown defense. But Erin Blanchfield has a multitude of ways that she can take Molly McCann to the ground and lock something up from there. Also, if Molly McCann does seem to drop her at any point in the fight, Erin Blanchfield's really good out of her full guard. I could see her doing something like Charles Oliveira-esque where she, lays on her back for a second, tries to bait Molly McCann in, and then lock something up from the bottom. So with all that being said, I really like Erin Blanchfield to get it done this weekend, and I really like her to get it done by submission. But I could see her, dragging this one out, making it a long fight, taking Molly McCann into deep waters, and winning by decision. So I'm rolling with Erin Blanchfield. That's what I'm going to wait on, too. I expect a lot of public money to come in on Molly McCann as well. So, with all that being said, Marcellus, what do you think of that pick? Do you like that, or?
I like it. It's a reasonable pick because, as you just said, she hasn't never really been tested as far as grappling is concerned. A lot of her fights have been stuck on the feet, and she's been getting these spinning back elbows. And in my opinion, they're cool, but as a striker, it's like not the cleanest spinning elbows I've seen. It's like, I don't know. Maybe she's getting this off of basically luck. If she can't pull one of those off, it might defeat her motivation. I've seen that in the past too, where there's a lot of people that get these high level finishes and they think they can get it into the next fight and then the next and the next and the next. And once it stops working, they forgot how to fight. So I like that pick. It's very reasonable.
Yeah, and it's just the only thing I feel like Erin Blanchfield really has to look out for too is like, all right, we see those hips move a little bit, get out of the way because the elbow's coming. What do you think about that one, Tom? You like that? You're rolling with me there? Or?
Listen, I like it, and I think, when you're looking at the analytics, it certainly makes a lot of sense. But the only thing that concerns me is the promotional aspect of the UFC and the way they do the matchmaking. And they have this superstar in Meatball Molly. She's tied to Patty Pimlet, right? So having her go, at a certain point in time, you're going to have to start taking risky fights, right? But I don't think it would be in the UFC's best interest to put her up against somebody that they think that she's going to have a realistic shot of losing to and potentially lose all of that promotional power that they built. And, Erin Blanchfield is a phenomenal fighter, super well-rounded, but she doesn't have the name recognition that Meatball Molly has. So I think from a promoter's standpoint, the year of the UFC, you're making that matchup, and you're either looking to really test Meatball Molly, see if she's the real deal, or you're willing to potentially lose out on a good stream of revenue and a potential, cash cow there. So I would be a little skeptical, a little concerned. But then again, that's where you make your money, is on those picks that you think a lot of people who are promoting or who are very high on Meatball Molly, they're going to come in with money on her. They're going to tune in to see her. That's where you make your money in betting. So I think it's a really, really potentially, heads up bet. That's something that we're here to provide the people that information who may not know Erin Blanchfield, but they're going to know Meatball Molly. They're going to know those two spinning elbow kicks. They're going to highlight those all throughout this week to get people to kind of favor her and watch into that fight. I'm a little concerned, though. I'm a little bit concerned because I can't see the UFC potentially willing to blow that promotional piece that Meatball Molly is. So we'll see what happens. But I have a very interesting, well, I don't think it's that interesting, prelim lock, but this one I feel very confident about, and that's going to be Andre Petroski against Wellington Turman. There's a couple of reasons for that. Wellington Turman, he came into the UFC, and there was a lot of high hopes for him. 2 quick losses to Andrew Sanchez and to Bruno Silva, both by ground and pound, and then he has a split decision to Sam Alvey, which doesn't look great, and then Misha Cirkunov, he submitted Misha Cirkunov, but I believe that might even have been the short arm of Misha Cirkunov. He's got that like really big left arm and then the bad right arm, or vice versa. The point about Wellington Turman is that his strength is supposed to be on the ground. And when you look at Andre Petroski, a guy who just finished Nick Maximov, who his strength was no question jiu-jitsu and that Diaz boxing style, when you have Petroski, he's going to go out and be able to finish a guy like Nick Maximov and have the resume he's had so far. Hugh Yazong by a submission arm choke, and then he did a ground and pound finish to Michael Gilmore in his first UFC fight following the Ultimate Fighter. I think there's a lot of good things to look at when you look at Andre Petroski. I think he looks almost like a Michael Chandler-esque, potentially with a little bit more of a submission wrestling game to him. He's a little bit heavier. He throws fast hands. He powerful punches. He can do the ground and pound, and he's shown us that he can submit very accomplished jiu-jitsu specialists. I don't think Wellington Turman's going to have anything for Andre Petroski, and we're going to see, we're going back with that New Jersey, Pennsylvania style. Gotta go with the homer, and I'm going with Andre Petroski. What do you guys think?
Nice. I like that pick a lot. And what he did against Nick Maximov, really, that stood out to me big time, because Nick Maximov was this guy getting put on a little bit of a pedestal for a little while there. Maybe it was just by his team. You probably remember Nate Diaz going like, I don't want to fight Hamzat. Put my boy up against Hamzat. He wants to fight him. And then Nick Maximov standing there like, like the what is that, the Homer Simpson meme when he's like trying to go back into the bushes. But Nick Maximov, he really does show a lot of potential. Looked good in his last fight. But Andre Petroski looked really good against Nick Maximov. I expect big things from him going forward. What do you think, Marcellus?
There's a reason why, like he mentioned, he was in the Ultimate Fighter, and they named him number 1 because he was looking like the guy who was going to take over that whole show. But unfortunately, it didn't come out his way when it came to the semifinals. But after that fight, after the whole Ultimate Fighter show, he came out and started dominating people.
Nice.
So I feel that with every fight with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yo, I just want to mention Marcellus before you do, if you have one for us. I'm assuming you got a prelim lock for us.
Oh yes, I have.
Before you jump in, I just want to say I love the Inferno background that you got going on back there. Sick gym.
It's actually inside the gym. We're actually here right now because I'm going to be setting up here in a little bit, make sure we're all ready to go for that Titan shoot. So I'll be over here. Yeah, this is a nice little memorial to like everybody. Full fam photo in the back.
Love it, man. That's sick. All right, give us your prelim lock. What do you got?
My prelim lock is Michael Trizano over Sung Woo Choi. These guys are very similar. They have a very similar style. They're very well-rounded in all around MMA. They got good striking, good grappling, that gets submission victories. And you could argue that Sung Woo Choi could possibly get the KO over Trizano, but Trizano's been in deep waters. He's been in UFC. He's a UFC veteran basically against this guy. So he's had way more experience. He had to deal with so many wars and battles. So I feel like he has the upper hand. He's going to know what to expect. He knows how to win fights. So I'm going to give Trizano the edge. It could be a all 3-round decision, but I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls off a submission victory. Nice.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I like the pick a lot. And honestly, Marcellus, you're a dog in the cage. So when you come here with your opinions, I take those with whatever the opposite of insult is. Like those come with a lot of weight, I would say. So I like the pick, and I will probably be tailing you this week on the betting end there. All right.
Looking at Topology too. Oh, yeah. Topology 82% are on Sung Woo Choi. So potentially a good opportunity to make some money there if everything pans out.
Yeah, nice upset pick there. All right. Yeah, we're gonna have to clip that. If that hits, we're gonna have to clip that and let the people know that Marcellus Wallace, the Master Chief, he knows what's up.
Coming in first.
There you go.
All right. So you guys ready to dive into this main card here? Well, actually, real quick, I do want to mention a fight I'm really looking forward to on these prelims. Renato Moicano versus Brad Riddell. Super pumped for that one. Both of these guys can take a beating, give a beating. It's just going to be great. What did you say?
I said you got a wrestling versus jiu-jitsu. Both guys are competent strikers, can give a beating, take a beating. That's going to be a good one. And then while we're talking about good fights too, we have the return of Dominic Reyes after a year and a half against Ryan Spann. I think that's a good winnable matchup for him as well. So definitely some really good fights all throughout this card, prelims, and on the main card, but especially once you get to the top part of those early prelims, or I guess you have the early prelims are solid, but the prelims and the main card are really fire. Or they're in fuego, or they're inferno, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah, they absolutely want people in the door. I mean, don't forget like what they did with MSG last year, opening the main card with Michael Chandler and Justin Gaethje. That they know how to get people in the door, especially in Madison Square Garden, and when they do the UK card, they know how to load the people in early. So really smart matchmaking all around and smart card structure. Wouldn't be surprised to see some of these move around. But with that being said, let's dive into the main card. We start off with Dan Hooker versus Claudio Puelles, and Dan Hooker scares me. I get nervous when I see him fight nowadays. I don't think he ever fully recovered from that war with Dustin Poirier. Then he got knocked out by Michael Chandler pretty quickly in Michael Chandler's UFC debut. Goes on to fight Nasrat Haqparast. Won that one. That was a good fight. Loses to Islam. Kind of realizes there may not be a future in the 155 division. Goes down to 145. Gets knocked out by Arnold Allen in just a show of pure aggression by Arnold Allen, too. So now he jumps back up to 155, and he's fighting Claudio Puelles, who he does something really well that Dan Hooker has kind of shown a weakness for in the past, and that's taking him to the ground. I mean, Dan Hooker, he was defending the takedowns well against Nasrat Haqparast, but Claudio Puelles is really good at jiu-jitsu, and he loves to lock up that knee bar. So, and he's competent on his feet as well. So with all that being said, I mean, we've seen now an aging Dan Hooker with a weak chin and pretty bad submission defense. So I'm going to roll with Claudio Puelles to get it done here this week. I can't put my trust in Dan Hooker anymore. He's just not the same hangman that he used to be. So I'm going with Claudio Puelles here. Don't know how he's going to get it done, but I think that he has far more ways to get it done than Dan Hooker in this one. despite the fact that Dan Hooker is a fan favorite and they're putting him on such a loaded up, card with a lot of eyes on it. I just don't think he's going to get it done this week. What do you think about this one, Tom?
Yeah, I'm just as concerned as you are. Now, Claudio Puelles has shown a good ability to get the fight to the ground, and he's been in some really wild jiu-jitsu scrambles and exchanges that end up with him just latching up that knee bar. I think he's got 2 or 3, and I think he's got 2 back-to-back in his most recent fights here. But when you look at Dan Hooker and you look at the striking ability of both of these guys, I think Dan Hooker, his boxing and his low leg kicks, and especially his knees and his elbows up the middle, is something that's going to deter Claudio Puelles from shooting that takedown. And what I've noticed when watching Claudio Puelles is some of his takedown and his ability to get the takedowns, they look a little wonky. I've heard it described before that he's looking to get the takedown on the single leg, but he comes in almost with his body back a little bit. So if things don't go his way, he can drop down into guard. But I don't think Dan Hooker is going to fall for that and go into Claudio Puelles' guard. And I also have seen Dan Hooker have some pretty good, single leg takedown defense. Now, Islam Makhachev, that I believe he took on short notice, and obviously Islam's the champ. I think you can almost throw that out because it's not like we're dealing with the same level of takedown and grappling here with Claudio Puelles. Claudio's a little bit more experienced when it comes to that top level competition. And like I said, a little bit iffy when it comes to those takedowns. If he does get it to the ground, I'd be very, very concerned for Dan Hooker. However, I'm going to have to go out on a limb and trust Dan Hooker to keep this fight standing. He has been very borderline cocky going into this, saying, hey, Claudio Puelles is a good guy, good fighter, up and coming, but he's just not on my level. And if the UFC wants me to prove that, I'm happy to do that. And, at the end of the day, yes, Dan Hooker is 1-4 in his last 5, but you're talking about a very tight back and forth striking battle with Dustin Poirier. He had the knockout to Michael Chandler, right, which could have been a byproduct of that Dustin Poirier fight. And also Michael Chandler has the power and has the hands and has the speed more than anything. And then, you have the Nasrat Haqparast where he shows that he can still do it and win a war. Then the Islam Makhachev on short notice, you can almost let that one go. And then you have Arnold Allen, which wasn't at his weight class. He drained himself to get to 45 as much as he says it wasn't drained. He came out there and he looked drained and Arnold Allen put it on him. So I don't even know how much I'm going to count that, being that it's not his natural weight class and it's not the weight class he's fighting at now. I'm going to side with the hangman, Dan Hooker, and yeah, I can't pick against him here. However, if he does get this second loss, I'm going to be very, very concerned for the career moving forward.
Yeah, all right, you swayed me. I'm going to go with Dan. I was on the fence there to begin with, but you're right. The knees up the middle are huge, and he really does use those well as the rest of those Aussies do. So I'm going to flip my pick over here. I was on the fence before, but the more I'm thinking about it, listening to you talk. Now let's see, Marcellus, will you sway me back? I'm swayable here. I'm very swayable.
This one was super conflicted for me to pick because I'm a big fan of Dan Hooker and Claudio Puelles. I wasn't the biggest fan of him before because of his arrogance, the way he used to fight. But then when he made the transition over the Sanford MMA, and like you said, he started implementing more of a grappling sense. He started doing more wrestling. He started pulling off more submission victories because he would get too cocky when it came to striking and would play in the fight and make it to where there's too close split decisions. But he's been fighting a lot smarter in his last few fights, and that could really take over against Hooker. But I feel like Hooker, he's feeling that energy. Like he's coming to terms like, hey, my best friend Israel Adesanya is the main event. We need to keep it in a victory lap. I need a win so he can win, so he can feed off my energy. So when I get that win, I'm going to get that win for him too. So I feel like he's feeling that pressure, and he's really coming back into his real weight class. He's not going to 45 where he drained himself and leaves the chin open. And honestly, he should never have made that move in the first place. And Arnold Allen's a beast. So I feel like he's going to get the victory on this one. I could possibly see a KO in this fight, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 3-round war, kind of like the Nasrat fight.
Yeah, I think that's more likely than Dan potentially knocking out Claudio. I feel like Claudio could knock out Dan too, just because of the damage his chin was taken. But all right, moving on up. Talking about damaged chins, we've got Frankie Edgar versus Chris Gutierrez, and I can't take Frankie Edgar here. Everything I just said about Dan Hooker just applies tenfold to Frankie Edgar. Aging, Frankie Edgar's like 41, 42. Two bad knockouts in a row, got that front kick by Chito Vera. And then just before that, the flying knee by Corey Sandhagen. It has been a while since Frankie Edgar's fought because I think he realizes the brain damage. These guys, great guys on our show today revealed to me that I wasn't even aware of, and it makes sense. This is Frankie Edgar's last fight, right, guys? You were saying that before?
His retirement fight. He's done after this.
It makes sense, it's about time to go. And we do have a friend out there we've done this with, Mike DeCunzac from, I think he's B&T Sports. That's his football show. He's Frankie Edgar's cousin. I'm curious to see what the retirement party is going to look like after this fight. Maybe I can get an invite. I'll have to hit up Mike DeCunzac. But anyways, yeah, I can't take Frankie Edgar here. His chin is just destroyed. And Chris Gutierrez, this is a big step up for him. But in his last fight against Dana Baccarel, he looked really good. Won that one by spinning back fist. And Dana Baccarel's no slouch. He's pretty solid, right? And I think Chris Gutierrez, he's creative enough. And that's the big thing, too, that Frankie Edgar has been suffering against is these creative guys that mix things up a lot. Who would have seen a flying knee coming from Corey Sandhagen? Now we know he likes to throw those. But at the time, it was okay, you're expecting a regular stand-up battle, and then boom, here comes this knee right to your chin. And then you got Chito Vera. I mean, the front kick, his kicks come out of nowhere. That Dominic Cruz knockout earlier this year. Very creative guys. So I think that's a place that Frankie Edgar is going to get hurt too, is with the creativity of Chris Gutierrez as well. What do you think about that one, Marcellus?
Honestly, it's basically everything you just said is on point. I'm just hoping this doesn't go. I don't want it to look bad for Frankie because Frankie, like you said, he's an old guy. He's getting ready to retire. I don't want to see him KO'd in his last fight. That's the one thing that worries me when it comes to these veterans taking their last fight. I feel like what he's going to have to do more than anything is to out wrestle this guy because Gutierrez is more well known for his striking, but he does have an all-around game. But I feel like in only way to kind of even the scorecards with him, he's going to have to really go right off the bat for his legs, right off the bat for the legs and grind him out and make him get tired like that. And let's not get knocked out. But I feel like that could be a possibility against Gutierrez here. Gutierrez is definitely going to have to keep it long and mix things up with him. Don't just strike with him the whole time. Make him think, hey, I may have to go for your legs. But even if it's not a real takedown, just make him feel that there's a threat. Just don't get caught up in it because Frankie will use that to take you down. But I feel like the young guy's going to get the win on this one. I just hope Frankie doesn't get knocked out. That's my only concern.
Yeah, I hope not either. You don't want to see a guy go out on a knockout. What do you think, Tom? Who do you got?
Yeah, I haven't done much research into the stat that I'm about to say, so take it with a grain of salt. I can't remember the last time that somebody had a retirement fight. Maybe someone in the comments will call me out on it because they always seem to call us out on everything else. But I can't remember the last time that somebody went into a fight knowing it was their last fight. That was their retirement fight and actually got the win and rode off into the sunset. There are people who retire after wins and they take their gloves off right there. They retire after losses and they take their gloves off. But when you actually go into the fight knowing this is my last fight, this is my last ride, I think the intention is that we're going to go into it, we're going to put it all out there. But at any fight, Marcellus knows this, any fight you're going in, you're leaving it all out there. And I think when you have that end is in sight, and that you don't necessarily have to go out there and put your body on the line anymore. And then you're fighting with the emotion. I think that ends up being a net negative. And that's as we've seen with a couple of people entering in their retirement fights. And then on top of it, you look at Frankie Edgar at 41 years old. And at where do they fighting this at? This one's at 135 pounds. The lighter you are, the more age impacts it. This isn't a 41-year-old Glover Teixeira who's the champion. This is a 41-year-old battered Frankie Edgar who's been doing it for 20 years and is now going to be at one of the lightest weights possible. So how does that, speed is one of the first things to go. And if you are a guy who's a grappler and you wrestle, speed is a major impactor of if you're going to be successful in that takedown attempt or not. And then you're going against a younger guy, Chris Gutierrez, known for the striking, like Marcellus said, but he does have an accomplished ground game. He is very good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I believe he might even be a black belt in that area. He's going to have the age. He's going to have the speed. He might even have the power at this point in his career. He's going to have the height advantage, which Frankie isn't foreign to, but they have basically the exact same reach. So there's a lot of things here that make me want to side with Chris Gutierrez, and that's what I'm going to do. I think Chris Gutierrez is going to get this one done. I hope Frankie doesn't get knocked out. I hope it's a war. I hope it's a battle. I hope it's something that Frankie can go out and be proud of. But ultimately, I'm going to have to go with Chris Gutierrez here against the pride of New Jersey, Frankie Edgar.
All right. Yeah, but it's unfortunate. You don't want to see Frankie Edgar go down, finish off with a knockout, but I think that's what's going to happen this week. All right, a fight that I've been excited for months. Anybody that's been watching this program for, basically since its inception knows that I am a massive Michael Chandler fan, have been since his Bellator days. So that's why this fight, and like basically ever since he's made his way into the UFC, he's faced a murderer's row so far. Opened with Dan Hooker, fought 6 months later, or less than that, for the belt against Charles Oliveira, knocked out there. Then Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson. Basically fights every 6 months. Company man. Here for, always says it, here for a good time, not a long time. We all know Dustin Poirier. I mean, he's another murderer on this murderer's row resume that Michael Chandler's putting together right now. And we all know that Dustin Poirier has the hands in this competition. There's no debate there whatsoever. Dustin Poirier's an incredible boxer. He's got great power. He's got great combinations. And just look at what he's done to his previous competition. He's gotten in there and just made guys crumble and fold. That's not to say that Michael Chandler hasn't done the same. And Michael Chandler does have the power and the chin to stand in there with guys. We've seen it with Justin Gaethje. He got caught against Charles Oliveira running away, and that's a little bit different. That was just a perfect shot from Charles. He didn't expect that from Charles. Nobody did. But Michael Chandler does have the chin to stand there and fight with Dustin on his feet. But he's also intelligent enough where in that Tony Ferguson fight, when he was giving it to Tony a little bit and then Tony started giving it back to him, he knew it was time to take Tony to the ground. Tony's a nut job. Tony was giving it to him off his back. I think Michael Chandler takes Dustin Poirier down this week if things don't go his way on the feet. And Dustin's not going to give him the business off his back out of full guard the way that Tony Ferguson did. Dustin Poirier is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but to quote Islam Makhachev when asked about Dustin Poirier's black belt, who give to this guy? Who give to him? I just don't think he's on par when it comes to the groundwork the way that Michael Chandler is. So hoping, and also, you go back, you watch Justin Gaethje fight, you expect maybe at some point Michael Chandler is going to take Justin Gaethje down. Pretty sure Justin Gaethje was Division I big-time wrestler as well. So the game plan's a little bit more solid for Michael Chandler going into this one. He does seem to get a little kooky when he's in the octagon though, and lose control and get a little wild. But I don't think that's going to happen this week. I'm hoping he's a little bit more measured because I do want to see him pull out a win. He is going to be my pick here because of the power, because of the wrestling. It's just the intelligence, and he really needs to implement that and just be smart. If I could give one message to Michael Chandler this week, it would be wrestle. Stand for a little bit and then shoot a takedown, or fake a takedown, come over the top of the really heavy, strong overhand the way that he knocked out Dan Hooker. Any one of those things, Michael Chandler could win this one, but if he tries to stand there and just scrap with Dustin Poirier, his night's going to be over, sadly. So I'm going with Michael Chandler here. Good dog money. He's been a dog. One stat, though, that kind of contradicts what I just said and makes me not want to go with these guys. Go with Michael Chandler. And this is the last thing I'll say. Might make one of your arguments stronger. Dustin Poirier hasn't lost 2 fights in a row in the UFC. Michael Chandler hasn't been able to string together 2 wins in the UFC. He's coming off his win against Tony Ferguson. So, law of averages and, whatever. That would tell you maybe Dustin Poirier is due for a win, but still rolling with my guy, Iron Mike. What do you got, Marcellus? What do you think?
Honestly, all those stats were pretty true. There was one thing that kind of sold me from months ahead when it came to these two interacting with each other. And the fact that one of them came out and asked, hey, can we make this a 5-round fight? And who asked that? That was Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier asked for this fight possibly hey, would you guys rather see this fight for 5 rounds? Because he understands, and I understood it too, he's not a 3-round guy per se, in my opinion. He could win a 3-round fight, but it depends on the opponent. With an opponent like Chandler thrives off this kind of fight where it's a shorter fight and you see more from him. Even with that loss to Gaethje, he showed up to fight, and he did the same thing with Ferguson and Hooker. He's had a much better outcome when it comes to 3-rounders rather than 5 rounds because Poirier survives for 5 rounds. He can do it for 5 rounds. He's been battle tested for 5 rounds before in the past. He can do it. Chandler, with this fight, from this past fight, he's been very explosive. If he goes explosive against a guy like Poirier, I feel like he could have the upper hand in this fight.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's something I didn't even consider, is the fact that, like, Michael Chandler against Charles Oliveira, he doesn't go in there looking to burn the gas tank out, knows it's a 5-round fight. And then you have him in there against, everybody else that he's fought, 3-round fight. He's looking to burn that gas tank out quick and make the fight end early. So that's a really, really good point, too. I didn't even consider that. It's like what we spoke about for 280 with Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley. There's a little bit more of like a downloading process, too, with Dustin Poirier. So, that's a really good point. And, Mike Chandler's going to burn that gas tank out early, but he's going to make it exciting, and he's going to use his power well. What do you got, Tom? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, and this is really what tears me, and Marcellus made a really, really good point about the difference in styles of these two guys and how they approach stand-up battles. Michael Chandler's going to come out there, and he's going to use that quick twitch muscle fibers that he has. He's going to use that power, and he's going to try and land on Dustin Poirier. And if we look back at the Conor fights, Dustin Poirier, claims that he came out unscathed, but there was significant points in time when he was getting touched by Conor McGregor. Not saying that Michael Chandler has the same style, ability, speed, power as Conor McGregor, but I think there's a lot of similarities that lend themselves there when you talk about landing the quick right or left hand, and you talk about the power that is associated with it. And then if you want to just talk about the ground game, I don't think Dustin Poirier is going to have much for Michael Chandler, being that Charles Oliveira had Michael Chandler's back, and Michael Chandler's basically like, all right, time to get up now, and just kind of put the arm over, turn around, spun, and got up. And then that ended up being a striking battle, which he ended up losing. But, that's neither here nor there. I think Dustin Poirier, at this point in his career, he had the knockout over Conor McGregor, but Conor McGregor was more of a boxing style, where Michael Chandler is going to be more of that wrestling style. He's going to threaten the takedown, and that's something that Dustin's going to have to be cognizant of, and that totally changes your approach to stand up. I think Dustin Poirier, like you said, Keith, has a bit of that downloading process, and with that more of the boxing style, there's going to be openings that would happen in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round that Dustin Poirier is going to capitalize on, that Michael Chandler that's not going to exist in this fight. I think it's going to be a really exciting first round. I'm just not sure that Dustin Poirier is going to be able to, or I'm not sure that his chin is going to crack in the way that it has for other people. But again, Dustin Poirier is a guy who's been battle tested, and he's been around the block for a while. And, it's not like he hasn't been finished before. So it's a very, very interesting fight. It's an intriguing fight to think about. I'm going to go with Michael Chandler because I think there's some plus money there. I think he's the faster guy, and I think a 3-round fight is more tailored to his stand-up style and skill set. And I really don't see much grappling being in the equation at all here for this fight. So with that being said, I'm going to go with Michael Chandler here. That's a super lock across the board. And just because I said I am on vacation, I am on a bit of a time crunch here, I'm going to give everybody else my thoughts for the next 2 fights, give my prelim locks, and then I actually got to run, and I'll let you guys take it home if that's all right.
Perfect.
Carla Esparza and Zhang Weili Zhang. I don't think Carla Esparza has much for Zhang Weili. Zhang Weili is going to go out there, and she is a firecracker. She's going to go out there, and she's going to be she's learned from that Rose fight where she lost. She came back in that second Rose fight, and they had an absolute battle, kind of said in jest. But Zhang Weili, I think, is going to be able to download, in training or in the film room or whatever. What's the correct term? You just call and watch a tape, Marcellus?
Watching tape. Yeah. Watching tape.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's football season. So the film room is kind of the vernacular that bleeds in. But I think Zhang Weili and her team, they have a very, very clear goal. And I think Carla Esparza is just happy that she came back and got the title again. I don't think her ground game is something that Zhang Weili is going to have a major weakness for. And I think when it comes to stand-ups and striking, Zhang Weili has it all day. So I think, especially looking at some of the film that came from Zhang Weili in the training room, she looks powerful. She looks fast. She hits hard. She, has a variety of different, she'll punch, she'll knee, she'll kick. She has the ground game that she could potentially thwart anything that Carla Esparza is going after her for. So I'm going with Zhang Weili. I know I'm not, no one's super surprised at that pick. I think she's probably a minus 200, 250 favorite at this point, maybe even more. And then in the main event, I'm going with Pereira. I don't think there's going to be much grappling here. And with the absence of that, it's not an MMA match. It is a striking match. It's a kickboxing match. And we've seen what happened, 2 times with that. Now, Israel is obviously probably gotten better for as it becomes MMA striking, but Pereira's got that deadly heat-seeking missile of a left hand. Adesanya's opponents have always been shorter than him, had a shorter reach than him, and he was able to bully the octagon and really make it his own. And he's not going to be able to do that against Alex Pereira. Isn't his name Potan?
Yes,
Potan. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I didn't want to like say a derogatory term or something that I didn't know what I was talking about. But
accidentally called him Puta.
Yeah. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Potan.
Different
Alex
languages, though.
Pereira, yeah. I think Pereira here. I think we're looking at a kickboxing battle. We've seen 2 kickboxing examples before, and they both did not go Israel Adesanya's way. You know, I think we have a new champion at the 185-pound division. So with that being said, those are my picks. My prelim locks, as you can tell, the dog's trying to get out. But going down the card here, my picks are going to be. I'm going with Andre Petroski over Wellington Turman. Going with Aaron Blanchfield over Molly McCann. I'm going with Dominic Reyes over Ryan Spann. Renato Macano over Brad Riddell. I'm going with Hooker over Claudio Puelles. I'm going with Chris Gutierrez over Frankie Edgar. Michael Chandler over Poirier. Zhang Wei Li over Carla Esparza. And Alex Potan Pereira against Israel Adesanya. We're going to have 2 new champions, and it's going to be a great UFC 281. Hope everyone enjoys it, and you guys have a good Sunday.
Safe travels.
Yeah.
Take it easy, man. All right. Marcellus, it's you and I now. So we'll go back to where we left off. I'm with Tom on the Weili Zhang pick. I like Weili in this fight a lot. I actually really think the Carla Esparza Rose Namajunas fight was probably a huge detriment to Carla Esparza, because Rose could have gone in there and shown her something. And had Carla still come out with a win, it would have at least prepared Carla for what was to come next. I think there's a lot of training there aren't many training partners that can mimic what Weili Zhang does. She's a very strong, very powerful striker. She's pretty creative nowadays. Got that sick win off of Joanna and Jacek. So I feel like Weili Zhang is coming into this one with like maximum power at this point, and Carla Esparza, she's just an obstacle in the way. I think Weili Zhang is going to be hoisting up that belt again. What do you think?
Yeah, not to be too disrespectful, but I feel like this is going to be easier than her last fight, because her tough fight, she already had that. It was Joanna Jacek, and she took care of it with ease. It didn't take much. And I feel like the fight between her and Carla Esparza is just going to go probably worse. It's probably be a lot quicker than that too, because she can weather the storm, whether it's by wrestling or striking. She's all well-rounded. Carla Esparza is very one-dimensional. She shows she has something with the striking, but not really. She resorts to wrestling majority of her fights. And Rose, she should have easily been able to dominate her, but she chose to let the challenger do all the work, and that's how she ended up losing their belt.
Right.
Weili's not gonna make that mistake. She's hungry to get that belt back. She felt like she lost something. She wants to get it back. She's hungry. Yeah,
she's definitely going to be the aggressor on Saturday. I have a feeling it's going to go early, because Weili is going to be up in her face very, very fast, just trying to look to end things. And yeah, Carla is going to be looking to sit back, looking for those takedowns. But what a lot of people are discounting and discrediting is Weili's grappling. She has been training with Henry Cejudo, Olympic, I believe, gold medalist in wrestling. She has the strength now to pick up a 293-pound Francis Ngannou with a single leg and lift him completely off of his feet. So there's a lot of power, in the hips of Weili Zhang coming into this fight. And I think that's going to benefit her a lot, whether it be stuffing takedowns or maybe she even goes for a takedown herself. Maybe she's like, you know what, fuck this. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to be the one to take down Carla early and just smash her out with some elbows. I don't know. I could see any number of things. It could go any way there. But I do think Weili Zhang comes out the win in this one. Mm-hmm. So that's another super lock. These kind of make me nervous when we start coming down to the end and we have all the super locks. I really thought I was going to be alone with the Michael Chandler pick. It's my guy, though. But we'll move on to the main event now. Got Izzy versus Alex Pereira. And I'm going to side with Tom here, actually. I'm going to go with Alex Pereira because, being a sports bettor, longtime sports bettor, there is like a thing when like a guy is due or a team is due for a loss. And I feel that way about Izzy. There is the history between these two men, that being that Alex knocked out Izzy twice, I believe, in kickboxing. Tom made some really great points. If you're just tuning in now, definitely make sure to go back and watch that because I don't want to just reiterate everything that he said. But Izzy is talking, my MMA striking is different. I can grapple more. And you can speak more to the differences between, kickboxing and Muay Thai striking as opposed to MMA striking. But Izzy's not going to go in there and look for takedowns against Alex Pereira. So at the end of the day, like, sure, there's some slight differences, but really how different do you think this matchup's going to go down? Because I see Alex coming out on top of this one. What do you think?
I feel like this is going to be a very unique and different fight because you've seen a lot of guys that are like choose not to wrestle with people and you see a striking battle happen. Like prime example is Gaethje and Chandler, two guys who know how to wrestle but know how to strike. This is going to be a very unique fight because you're going to basically call this like they're basically having a 1FC match, except you're never going to see anybody do any knees on the ground, stuff like that. They're just going to be standing the whole time. It's going to be a stand-up war. And like you said, MMA striking is a lot different than kickboxing striking. They're using smaller gloves this time, so things are going to land a lot cleaner, a lot smoother. So there's a 50-50 chance that, hey, Pereira could get him with that left hand. Adesanya could possibly get him with his straight jab and keep him away. But who knows? Because like you've mentioned, he has been knocked out by Pereira. But only one time from what I remember, only once. Right. And the second fight went to decision. And that's where there was a lot of controversy in that fight too, where the stats were in favor for Izzy as far as the striking advantages in there. But Pereira came out on top on that fight. He still ended up winning that fight. And I feel like if anything happens with grappling, I don't think Izzy's going to do it, in my opinion. I feel like Pereira could possibly, you might see him shoot or just tie him up and look for a trip because you got to remember who is his coach. I mean, not his coach, who is his training partner, Glover Teixeira. Yeah, Glover Teixeira is definitely going to be in his corner because you could definitely see that. You could definitely see some grappling exchanges from him more than likely in this fight, but I don't think their egos will allow that to happen. And I feel like Izzy's coming in with a lot of pressure in this fight, so he's going to have to really take into account, like, hey, this guy beat you twice, and I don't think he's going to want to lose on the biggest stage of his career in MSG. He's going to come out with something big. And part of me believes this. Izzy's fights, his last few fights have been very, very boring. And I think he's been bored and not trying to like take risk with any of these guys for fans. I feel like this one is going to be the one where he's going to have to really come out of his shell and let things loose. Like, hey, I've been holding on to this because he knows there was a potential. He's been saying it in every fight. Like, there's that potential this guy's going to come up and he's going to come fight me. He's been thinking about him the whole time he's signed the UFC. So he's been playing it safe. Who knows? He may have to he's going to let things loose in this fight. And that's where I'm going to keep my faith with Izzy Adesanya on this one.
Oh, so you're rolling with Izzy here. Okay. Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, I mean, I totally respect the pick, and this is really either man's fight. It doesn't feel like Izzy's previous fights where it's like, okay, this is a lock. Like Jared Cannonier didn't even bring the fight to Izzy. And, that's why they've been boring fights, like you said. But at the end of the day, this is a guy that's going to bring it to Izzy. At least we think so, just based on previous history. Mm-hmm. And he's brought it to everybody else that he's fought. He's going to be the aggressor. And I think that might actually be something else that could be to Izzy's detriment this weekend is the fact that Izzy's used to, keeping him at range, throwing that leg kick. All right, let me take 2 more steps back, throw a couple more leg kicks. And I mean, not to say that he's not an incredible, stand-up fighter, but it's going to be a little bit of a change of pace when you have a guy that's actively pursuing you and is the true aggressor through, this is going to be an incredible fight. I'm rolling with Pereira, but you've, just being that you have the history and you are an accomplished fighter yourself. I already knew Izzy, this. I mean, I'm not saying that Pereira is going to like win this flat out, and it's going to be an incredible fight. But you're kind of swaying me back in that direction a little bit. So just to recap, me and Tom are both rolling with Alex, and Marcellus is taking Izzy here. All right, so that wraps up the card. I do have one more lock, and that's November 18th. Marcellus Wallace
Yeah.
Yeah, catch him on at UFC Fight Pass. I'm pumped. I'm super excited for that fight. I believe you said it before we were recording, but maybe it was on here just in case you didn't. What do you think of your opponent this week or for this upcoming fight?
He's young and he's hungry. I give him all the props for even taking the fight because, as I mentioned before, I don't know if it was on the show or before, like, he's one of many to say yes, but 8 of them said no. He said yes and has not said no yet. So I'm going to keep it in lock, and I'm taking everybody super serious, no matter who it was. Whether if you're a good striker, you're a good grappler, you're a well-rounded fighter. Anyone that says yes and shows up weigh-in day, shows up fight day, you have my respect. You have my respect, but I'm going to go get the job done every way I can. I'm not here to play around. I'm here to win.
Yeah, this is your life, man, and you have a family legacy to uphold. So, not to put too much pressure on you, but I'm really excited for you, and I'm looking forward to watching that. November 18th, UFC Fight Pass. All right, we're gonna end this how we always do, with our pick rundown. So I'm gonna run down my picks real quick, and then I'll pass it over to you. For my prelim locks, I'm going with Andre Petroski, Aaron Blanchfield, and I'm torn on who's going to win that Renato Moicano Brad Riddell fight, but that is a lock to watch. That's going to be a great one. Also, check out the Dominic Reyes Ryan Spann fight. That's going to be a great one too. The prelims are pretty stacked. For the main card, I'm going with Dan Hooker, Chris Gutierrez, Michael Chandler, Weili Zhang, and Alex Pereira. Run down your picks one more time for us, Marcellus.
My prelim lock was Michael Trezano over Sung Woo Choi. You guys sold me on Andre Petroski over William Turman, so I'm taking Petroski on that one. For the main card, I picked Dan Hooker in this one, just to feed that energy into Izzy. For Frankie versus Chris, I picked Chris Gutierrez. Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, I picked Chandler to take that. And then the super lock was over Carlos Esparza's Zhang Weili is going to take over in that fight. And for the main event, Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira, I picked Israel Adesanya.
Nice. All right. Just want to say thanks again for joining us this week. It's always a pleasure to have you on here, my friend. Make sure, if you're watching this right now, go ahead and follow at MarcellusW16 on Twitter and Instagram. That's Marcellus Wallace. Master Chief, still one of the dopest nicknames I've heard in the fight game. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe over here if you haven't already. Follow us, our team, on Instagram and Twitter at _Pickin Winners, as well as at _Pickin Fights on Instagram. You can check us out on Spotify. If you can't watch this on YouTube, if you want to listen in the car, listen at the gym, check us out on Spotify. Just look up Pickin Winners. You'll find our cool logo over there. Thanks again to Tom. I know he's not here now. He might still be watching. Thanks again to you, Marcellus. Do you have anything else you want to plug real quick before we bounce?
No, just make sure you stay tuned in on UFC Fight Pass November 18th, starting at 6:30 Eastern Time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and get ready for me to put on the show. Master Chief is coming.
Nice. Super pumped. All right, real quick, want to run through the comments. Tape study. Robot Chicken Wings letting us know what's up with the not the film room, it's the tape study. Zhang Gang. I like the breakdowns. I'll be tuning in more. I'm glad I was up this morning. Thank you, Robot Chicken Wings. And thank you, everybody else, for being here with us. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy some football or whatever it is you do. And we'll see you, Marcellus, November 18th.
I'll be ready.